What's up, everybody? It's your pal on wheels, Mr. Amazing CT Barry, coming at you with another video. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about why I wanted to get into the wrestling business. WWE, the company that I manage for, did a video interviewing all of us about why we wanted to enter the wrestling business. And I want to use my platform to elaborate more on my story. So I'm going to be a little bit of CT Barry, and I'm also going to be a little bit of Corey Scarberry in this video. So let's start out with the man, Corey Scarberry, behind the character of CT Barry. So I was born with a disability known as cerebral palsy. And that disability can affect people in many different ways. You know, some people, they don't have feeling in their body, like in their lower extremities. They're paralyzed. You know, they can barely speak or not speak at all. You know, they have to, have everybody do everything for them. Like, if you name it, it has to be done for them. Like, they are unable to do it. But, fortunately and by the grace of God, my ability was in my legs, which impacted my ability to walk, and, my dexterity in my hands. Like, I am able to write, but, like, after a certain amount of time, it just goes all over the place because my hand just, like, it cramps up on me, like, it just gives out. And, I did walk with a walker, I'd say from the time I was 3 up until the time I was 10. I had a surgery when I was 6 years old. It was called a dorsorhizotomy. And what happened was that they cut tissue in my spine, with the ability that, we were told that one day I would be able to walk with, like, hardly any assistance, like maybe a cane, like, would be all I would need. And, unfortunately, as the years went on, after that surgery happened, my left foot caved in, like at an angle. Like, instead of being straight, it went, like, it pointed towards my right foot, so I guess that would be, like, it went, like, almost, like, I'd say, like, an acute angle to the right. And, and I had that surgery done in St. Louis, Missouri, which, and I've lived in Ohio, vast majority of my life. I was born in Cleveland, and, I moved to West Virginia, and I lived there from 6 months until I was 4 years old. And then I've lived in a county called Meigs County, Ohio ever since. And so then we went to, I was diagnosed by a doctor in Morgantown with cerebral palsy when I believe I was 11 months old. And, I was pushed beyond my limits by my family because, they were told that, one day I was going to be able to walk. And, they pushed me, beyond my greatest limits, And there were days I was just like, yeah, nah, ain't going to do it. And they're like, yeah, you are. I'm just like, okay. And, I am forever grateful, for my parents, for my grandma, my aide that I had for, oh gosh, 6 years, and, pushing me to be great and beyond my limits. And so fast forward to, I'd say about 7. This had been about 2 years since the surgery. And we went to a doctor in Columbus, and he told my mom, like, look, he's not made to walk. So, obviously as a mother, that made her very angry, and she's like, well, yeah, well, we're not going to go and see this guy again. And, and they just kept pushing me, but then, eventually when I was in about, oh gosh, I'd say 4th grade, I walked on crutches, toward the end of my 1st grade year into my 2nd grade year, and then I went back to the walker because I just couldn't keep my balance on the crutches. And what eventually happened was, because I was a very small child, like I was skinny. I'd say I wasn't even, I'd say maybe 90 pounds at the lightest. I was small. And, I wasn't growing at a rapid pace, and I would wear out easy. And, then fast forward to 4th grade, I grew. I started taking medicine. It made me eat a lot, which made me grow. And then my body just was like, no, we can't keep up anymore. And eventually I had to, go into the wheelchair. And, and what was so heartbreaking for my parents and grandparents, especially my grandmother, because she really, really pushed me to walk, and, just wanted me to be as independent as I could. And, and they had her, take me out of the room so, they could tell my parents the bad news. But, I smiled inside because I was just like, okay, I don't have to carry around all this weight in my legs anymore. Because I was back then, I was about an ABC student, because I didn't have a whole lot of energy to focus into my schoolwork, because by the end of the day, I was done. I was tired. I would cry because I would be in just unbearable pain, and, and then it just got to the point where we finally got the wheelchair, and that was just one thing that's like, okay, yeah, and I did gain an ungodly amount of weight since then, but, it was just something that, I was able to, keep up with everybody else and not be as tired. And then, I started making AVs, and, eventually fast forwarded it to high school. I was able to get into the National Honor Society. I went to college, got my 2-year degree in IT networking from the University of Rio Grande. And so you're all wondering, what does this have to do with wrestling? Okay, well, this is now where C.T. Berry comes in. So, let me think. I was about maybe 5th grade when I started hearing about wrestling. Everybody, collected those wrestling action figures from, Jakks Pacific at the time. This was about 2007, 2008, so this was the tail end of the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE, heading into the PG era. So, my brother, he watched it, like, he was really into it, and he would explain, different things to me about it. And so would my friends, because they all had those wrestling action figures. And, of course, then I got me some because all my friends had some. And, and then my cousin got into it. Like, I feel like him and I got into it around, like, 2009, around the same time. And I was in 6th grade, and we were downstairs in our basement, and my brother had wrestling on. It was an episode of WWE Superstars. It was CM Punk versus Chris Jericho. And I finally got to watch it, because I'd only seen the wrestling, like, in the video games or, with the figures. And, I had never seen it in real life until that moment. And I just, I fell in love with it. And, I was, like, down there going, oh my God! When they would just, like, do a basic slam or clothesline. And then, fast forward to fall of that year, it was like John Cena and Randy Orton were in their rivalry. This was around Hell in a Cell 2009. And I seen it on TV. My brother was watching Raw, and and I went in and watched it with him, and ever since then I fell in love with it. We would watch WWE, we would watch TNA, and and I always wanted to be that general manager that was the good guy, like, I was like Teddy Long, stop the bad guys from cheating. Just lay down the law and be like, look, this is how this is going to work. Like, you're not going to cheat. So, me at 11 years old, I thought, oh, I could go to WWE and be a general manager right now. Like, at 11 years old, like, I was still a kid. And they, and then I would just watch it on. And, like, when I was, 6th, 7th grade, I was obsessed with it. I'd sit on my laptop or my iPad and just watch old videos from, like, the Ruthless Aggression era and, old TNA videos. I mean, John Cena, I was like, I swear I had a man crush on that guy back then. And, John Cena, Jeff Hardy, Jeff Hardy did all those crazy stunts he used to do. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. And it's like, well... I kind of have to be a little realistic. So that's why I'm like, well, maybe it's not really for me. So, I just kept on as a fan. And, like I said, I went to college, got my degree, thinking I was going to be some computer geek. And then, I realized as I got older, I wouldn't be able to hold down a full-time job because of my disability. And, like I talked about earlier, me wearing out so easy, and then, me needing the care, like the Medicaid, to pay for the wheelchair and for the waiver, to help pay for people to come in and, help do the things that I'm physically unable to do. And, around the pandemic, I was like, man, I just need to do something with my life. And I started, this was before, I had moved out on my own officially. A company called Top Notch Wrestling Alliance, you've heard me talk about them on the channel, were running a promotion out in Rutland, Ohio, about 15 minutes from where I was from, if that. And, my inclusions friends and I went out there once, and, there was a couple times, I didn't go because I didn't have a way there. And then, Like, I begged my dad to take me one time because they were having, a show out in Rutland, at the Rutland Oxfest that they do every 4th of July, and it was free. I'm like, Dad, it's free wrestling. We gotta go. And he's like, okay, I'll take you, no problem. So, here's me sitting in middle of a park in the 4th of July, being hotter than hell, and, watching, wrestling, and, and a guy that I used to go to church with, he goes by the name Vincent Cross, real name Kenny McKnight, he was in it, and then, as I got, and I'm going all over the place, but, in 2017 I joined Inclusions. You've heard me talk about them. And they, Mary, she used to be an SSA, which means, they helped, people with disabilities manage their waivers, like made sure they got the services that they needed, that they wanted, that sort of thing. And there was this guy, by the name of Ethan, and he has what I have, and Mary told me he was a wrestling manager, and I'm like, what? Like, how? And, I got to meet him at some point, and we talked about the business, and, I've seen his videos, and then, fast forward to not even a year ago, I was like, you know what, screw this. I want to do this. Like, I have to watch how much money I make anyway, and, and if you've heard stories from independent wrestlers, they hardly make anything. But I was just like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do for as long as I'm physically able to do it. And, I talked to my friends at TWA, and, and they're, I believe they're trying, to, help me, find a spot in the show. But then, back in April of 2022, I was just browsing through Facebook, and I seen that there was a show up in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which is about 45 minutes from where I live. And it was called West Virginia Wrestling Entertainment. And, Kenny, the guy that I mentioned earlier that I went to church with, him and the late, great Ryan James, real name was Nate Thompson, were wrestling up there. So, I messaged Nate and his girlfriend Maddie, asked them about it, and, was like, hey, like, can I get in this venue? Is a wheelchair accessible? And they're like, yeah, you should be able to get in it. So, I had my staff take me up there, and I've been going ever since that day, and I was there one night, and, and I had been, talking to some people about the business. I messaged Ethan, see how he got in, and then, I started with this other group, EYH, and there's a staff guy that works there. His name's Larry Hess. He used to be a referee on the indies, so I've been, I talk his ear off every chance that I get, to see him, and, he's been helping me, and then, Brad Litchfield, the guy that owns TWA, he's been talking to me a little bit, so have all my other friends from TWA. But one night in particular, I was up there, and I seen this young man wheel out in a wheelchair, and he was a manager for Brock Hudson. And I'm like, because I would see him at, a lot of the shows in the crowd, and then, he was managing Brock Hudson against his brother, James, the guy that I manage now, and I was just like, I'm like, whoa, how did he get in it? So, after the show was over, Wildcat, Greg Shriver, the owner of West Virginia Wrestling Entertainment, was standing out in the locker room, and I went over to him and I said, hey man, like I just seen, the young man in the wheelchair that did it tonight, like what do I need to do to get in it? Like I want to get in this. And he goes, come talk to me next show and we'll figure out a place for you, like the character, like where you want to go. And then Brock actually messaged me and said, hey, like, how would you like to be involved in it? So, I'm not trying to break kayfabe here, but, I'm like, just trying to tell my story. So I guess you could say now, Corey's back instead of CT. But, I was just like, he's like, hey, like, do you want to be involved in our match? I was like, yeah. So, I mean, it just started out as me and the crowd, and, they were poking at me, and then, James is like, hey, I need you in my corner for the next match, like, are you in? I'm like, yeah, I'm in, and I've been rolling with them ever since, so I've been doing it, oh gosh, I'd say about 2 months now. I mean, yeah, and it's a lot doing, every other Saturday it seems like I'm doing a wrestling show, but it's worth it, it's worth it to see the crowd into it, living my dream and, just learning about the business and, what it entails and, hearing stories from a lot of the guys. But, I revamped my YouTube, just a few short months ago because, I would watch the press conference after WWE pay-per-views and, like Sean Ross of Fightful and, like Dave Meltzer, Jim Cornette, people that would get on and talk about the business and, and I see all this negativity and all this bashing about the wrestling business, like they're like, oh, this sucks, like these guys can't book and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, why can't you be constructive, but like don't fanboy? Because like I see people white knighting for AEW, I see people white knighting for WWE, and it's just like, dude, just enjoy all of it. And that's what perspective I wanted to bring. So, it went through a couple different name changes, and it went, from Wrestle Talk to Wrestling with Wheels to now Over the Top Rope. And, my character changed a couple times. I was going to be Corey Hot Wheels. And, some people loved it. A lot of people loved it. But, it was brought to my attention that by a couple people that in the business that I trusted that, I would be booked, for the wrong reasons. Like, people would take pity on me being handicapped and not booking me for my talent. So, and I was C.T. Barry at one point, but, I felt like it would be hard, to, like, not introduce myself as Corey. But, and then it was like, it's like I feel like C.T. Barry sounds more natural than Corey Hot was. Like, even in a video game, like, I could create C.T. Barry because, I always loved, like, the lucha libre type wrestling and that high flying and, and I feel that I could differentiate between Corey and CT. Like, even if CT's a heel, You know, like, that's not me in real life. This is just me playing a character. Because with wrestling, we're all actors. It's just like a movie. You know, you go to the movie theater and you watch the movie, like hero versus villain. But in wrestling, you get to create that in real life in front of a live audience. And it's just something so magical and so special. And I am so grateful to God. I'm grateful, to WWE, TWA, even though I don't go with them officially yet, but they have helped me out and, develop my character as a manager. And, those guys have given me great advice over the years about the do's and the don'ts of the business. And I love this. I mean, even if I never make a dime off of it, I don't care. My riches come from entertaining all of you, the fans, and being an inspiration to, other people with physical limitations that's like, well, I can't do anything. I'm just, going to be stuck at home my whole life. It's like, no, yeah, there's things you're not going to be able to do, but, there's an old saying, if there's a will, there's a way. And, no, I can't go and be that lucha libre wrestler and fly all over the ring like Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy. But, I can go and, be a manager or even like an announcer one day or even like a general manager. Like there's so much in the wrestling business to do. And I'm just so grateful that I found my passion in life, which is wrestling, and now I get to live out the dream. And I get to, sit here on YouTube and talk to you guys about the business and give you my thoughts on it. But, I know I kind of went all over the place in this video. I tried to stay as chronological as I could, but you know how that is. But I just wanted to come up and, talk to you guys, tell you guys my story, from the humble beginnings of Corey Scarberry all the way up to now, the C.T. Berry that you guys know me as on the internet. And if you come and watch WWE, like I'm C.T. at that point. And, and I know some people probably like, oh, God, you just broke like a crap ton of kayfabe. But I'm like, I feel like this was the best way to tell my story. Yes, I have limitations. There's things that I can't do. And some of that sucks, but I've made it work and turned a dream into a reality. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of the guys said in the video that WWE did, we're all just fans. We're all just fans living out the dream of playing a wrestler, of being a character, escaping reality to put smiles on people's faces for those 2-3 hours a night we're in the ring. And it's fans like you that make this a reality for us. Whether you cheer us, whether you boo us, you guys are why we do this. Because if it wasn't for you all, we wouldn't be where we are today. So guys, I just want to say thank you for all the support. I know my family watches this, so I want to thank them. I want to tell them that I love them, and thank you for all the support you've given me. My entire almost 26 years of existence. I want to thank, my inclusions people, for getting me back and forth to these shows so I can live my dream and, be in the wrestling business. And I want to thank, WWE for giving me the opportunity to shine. And I want to thank you guys that have stuck with me on YouTube, from the days back in 2017 where we were unboxing movies to now we sit and we talk wrestling and, we hang out and play video games and, just talk about whatever. So I want to thank everybody for their continued support, and more importantly, I want to thank God, for, giving me the opportunity to live life and, despite my struggles, live out my dreams and, living out my purpose on earth. And, I can honestly look here in the camera with the straight face and tell you guys that I've had, despite my hardships, physically, I've had just an incredible, almost 26 years of a life. And, I thank God for, waking me up every day and, keeping me going and, putting me here to be a shining light for you guys. So, with that in mind, guys, we are 31 minutes and counting into this video. So, I didn't know how short or long this would be, but like I said, I felt like this was a good platform to really tell my story and, from small Corey to wrestling manager C.T. Berry. So, thank you guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on this week's episode of Over the Top Rope.